Hey guys, what's up? It's Schla coming back to ya with another episode of Car Rides with Schla. And today is the end of the week. So I'm doing some final screenshotting that I had been avoiding doing. Alright, here we go. Just want to pack this away, and now we will leave. So, main thing I want to get to is vent about some, frustration because I basically incorrectly made a decision, right? So I had thought that since I'm on the carnivore diet, it would be very wise for me to get some Lite salt, which is a mixture of sodium and potassium, as opposed to just straight up sodium. And this is supposed to be a good thing because you don't necessarily get enough potassium on carnivore. It's a pretty common thing to not have the ideal recommended potassium. However, so I purchased the Lite salt. I had been thinking about it for a while. I bought a ton of it because it's really cheap if you buy it in bulk. It was like for 6 11-ounce cans, it was $18, and then for 12 11-ounce cans, it was only $28. So instead of being $36, so really cheap. I mean, really cheap stuff. Not as cheap as regular salt, but still, it's just, I'm in such a stingy kind of vibe right now in general. And so, sorry, I'm not explaining. So at first it's like, yeah, that's great. I mean, you'll probably have enough for a whole decade because you don't even use that much of that stuff, and you mass bought, you stockpile like a non-perishable. It's smart, it's wise, and that's what I was thinking. But then, as I'm researching and trying to optimize my whole routine and schedule and all that stuff, I came upon the realization that milk is actually one of the cheapest sources of protein. And I guess I just wasn't really aware of that for whatever reason. I guess I assumed it was eggs, and eggs probably are, if it comes to satiation, because milk, even though it's more protein per dollar, it's overall not as satiating. And, there's also sugar in milk, there's lactose. And so some people might be wanting to avoid that. So that's like another pretty valid concern that happens with, milk consumption. So eggs are kind of a better option, kind of. I mean, they're not a super better well, yeah, they kind of are. I mean, it's just one of those things. It's one of those things I could flesh into the pros and cons of each, but I think generally eggs are still better. But if I introduce milk into my diet, it should save me money, and it should also be an easier way to have a little bit more of a caloric surplus, which is what I'm trying to do, because I am skinny, and I have a feeling that a little bit more of body fat would be a good thing just because of how skinny I am. Just something I want to experiment with. Very minor. I don't want to do anything crazy or anything overly noticeable. Nothing that, I wouldn't just... You'd be able to reverse pretty easily. I'm not trying to gain weight. It's just like, yeah, like a little bit. I think it could be better. I'm just kind of thinking that having a little extra body fat, it could make the body a bit calmer, for example, because if you have more energy on hand, it's just a little more chill. There's a little more resource availability, right? So I'm assuming that could put me in a better state than if I were to have, be as skinny as I am. Now, I'm not severely skinny. I'm probably at a pretty healthy weight, but I just think there could be hypothetical benefits to having a little bit more weight. And I do genuinely think and believe, if I had to imagine, that in the past, and even now, like, a lot of humans do have a certain amount of body weight as fat, and especially in the past, that would have been the case because the humans who were scrawny didn't even survive, and you would have had to, you might not have always had food available and things like that. So, yeah, I feel like being at a bit more of a caloric surplus could be a benefit, because right now I'm probably not, and I don't think it's really going to be that possible for me to eat much more than I eat without leaning pretty heavily into dairy, because I don't know. I just can't, the food I'm eating is very satiating. Butter, beef, eggs, it really fills you up, but my calories are not really there. And I just wonder if, because my metabolism is as fast as it is, I could feel better on a bit more of a caloric surplus. So that's kind of the experimenting. And again, apparently milk is the cheapest protein that you can purchase. It doesn't even seem particularly close, but I do want to get the actual prices at the food store this weekend to really put everything into the AI and get some clear, calculated answers. I just think that is the right idea, So that is the plan. That's the plan. This weekend, going to take a lot of pictures, going to try to do some calculating to figure it out. So here's the problem. Milk is very high in potassium. So if I do introduce milk into my diet, which is not a guarantee because I may just not be able to tolerate it, if I don't like it, I can't force myself to have it. It's just not going to happen. Milk is very high in potassium, so it makes it so the light salt actually doesn't make any sense, because then I'm at a risk of having too much potassium. Now, it could still be useful if it wasn't for that. But here's the thing. I put the order in for the light salt, and then it already shipped. So I can't I can't stop it. I can't. Why am I talking like this? I can't refund it. I can't do that. It's possible I could look into getting it returned. I'm just thinking of that now. I don't know why I didn't think about that sooner. It's possible that I could get it returned, but I don't like doing that. I feel bad because it's putting a bunch of strain on things, and it's for how cheap it was. I don't feel like making the manufacturer just take a hit because of my stupidity. You know what I mean? I guess it's possible I could see if I could return it, but I haven't really been considering that. So it's kind of just an L, and it could be a big waste. And what I need is regular salt, because what I was getting to is apparently a lot of my symptoms, the excessive need for water, and among other things, could actually be due to not enough salt, which is very interesting because obviously a lot of this stuff in the way I'm eating, based on the prior commonly known health advice, it wouldn't even be recommended at all. Like we were told red meat isn't a good thing and all this other stuff, and fat's not good and butter's not good, and that's kind of what I learned growing up. And so I avoided a lot of those things, and I always heard salt was not good, so I always avoided it in my cooking back in the pasta days before I converted to carnivore. I never added salt to my cooking because I heard it was unhealthy, and so I didn't add it. And I thought I was doing something wise by doing that. Interestingly enough, too, this random YouTuber that you can actually look up if you're really curious, he has a bunch of wacky ideas. Zen Atman made some comment about how salt is Saturnian or something, and how the cubes are cubes, it's Saturnian and all this stuff, and that you shouldn't do it, you shouldn't consume it, and you should quit it. I don't really know what, that's more of a spiritual thing. It's not an actual thing. So I followed it a little bit. I mean, that was part of the reasoning, but not really. Like, the main reason was I just always heard that salt was bad and people eat too much salt. And so I just thought, well, I'll just get used to not having salt on my things, and then that's great. But what happened is, and here's the thing that's peculiar, is I never liked cheese growing up. It was like an odd kind of thing, but I actually just never really liked cheese. I never really ate it. I never really particularly wanted it. And that's obviously interesting because it is the biggest craved thing. But I actually just never ate it. Like, it's almost weird. I went from being, as a child, somebody who doesn't eat any cheese at all to eating a ton. And I mean, a part of that had to do with, I like a lot of really high-end cheeses, the expensive cheeses, and then the lunch meat cheeses taste like disgusting to me. Like, they literally, I feel like sick. But the expensive aged cheeses are great. They have such a nice texture and such a nice taste. I love those. But the cheap cheeses, it's really not. I don't know. And I mean, I would have sandwiches with cheese on it. Not often. Sometimes. But so, again, interestingly enough, I didn't really eat that much cheese growing up. So that's kind of what makes it peculiar. I eventually became obsessed with cheese, and I ate like tons of it. Like too much. If anything, I probably was eating too much. And here's the kicker. It was cheese high in sodium. And so what I'm thinking now, and I'm trying to connect the dots, is what if my craving for cheese and this really high salt cheese comes from a lack of sodium because I was misled into thinking that a lot of salt wasn't good. And I don't believe it anymore because I realize how much of an essential thing sodium is. I think the problem is most processed food, and therefore what a lot of people eat, has way too much sodium. So then that causes issues. But I don't eat many processed things at all. So it begs the question, right, of, I'm not eating a lot of that stuff, and then my sodium levels are probably fine. I mean, yeah, like they're, if anything, they're probably too low. And those ideas about sodium and all that aren't super relevant to me because my intake of them is not too much. It's probably adequate. It's probably not enough, because if I'm just cooking my own food and not having a lot of processed food, and even back then, I mean, I wasn't carnivore, but nothing I used in my cooking had salt added. I made my own pasta sauce. I obviously just boiled regular pasta, not ramen. So there was not salt added to any of the ingredients that I used. And then I didn't add salt to my cooking because it just wasn't necessary, you know? So it, yeah, I don't know. That's just what I did. And I'm trying to think, and I'm thinking about this, right? And so it's possible that, it's very possible that I started this cheese addiction because of salt. Because when I have regular cheese that isn't very salty, I don't even like it. It's only those really salty cheeses. So this week, as an experiment, I am going to add a ton of salt to my beef when I cook it. And we're going to see if that helps me to feel better. Is that going to adjust the water issue and, you know, a lot of these kind of problems that I've been having with a lot of thirst and a lot of stuff like that? I'm just putting it out there. I'm just wondering, you know, what if the whole time the whole problem was the salt? It's entirely possible. I could just be a person who needs more salt than average. Oh, and I want to point out too, especially on carnivore, it is a common issue to not have enough salt or to be, you know, needing more salt. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but it's got something to do with the electrolyte need and something with the sugar electrolyte, insulin or something. I mean, I don't. Sadly, I can't explain it fully, but take my word for it. It's a pretty common thing on carnivore to need a more salt than you would if you did eat sugar. So I'm going to try it. I'm going to really add a lot of salt and see if that makes me feel better. Because a lot of the symptoms I have just correlate with not having enough salt. So we will see. We will see how that goes. And like I said, could have just wasted $28. I mean, you know, it's just could have just blew $28. It kind of stinks, but I mean, can I really complain that much? Probably shouldn't. Probably shouldn't complain that much. Because so many people have it a lot worse. But yeah, it's just frustrating because, like I said, if I knew milk was this really cheap source of protein and also a very good source of potassium, then I wouldn't have got it. So, but it is true. I mean, if I don't end up being able to stand the milk, which is possible, then the light salt could still make sense. But, you know, I have a feeling I'm just going to rough it out. And so just wasted a bunch of money. And now I'm going to have a ton of this stuff. No idea what to do with it. So I want to experiment with these things. I'm going to try to quit cheese and just salt my stuff a lot more and see how that goes. Because I kind of slack with salting my stuff. Like, I'm not diligent about it. For some weeks I would forget to salt my food, and then I'd just deal with it. I mean, it would taste horrible, but I don't know. I didn't really feel like, I guess, sprinkling salt on it. It was too lazy, I guess. But some weeks, yeah, I just wouldn't have it salted, and then, it's interesting. It's pretty interesting how that goes, right? But I'm going to try pretty excessively and just see how it changes things, see if I feel any better, things like that. Just very curious. Very curious. So, the other thing I wanted to mention is trying to achieve more of a caloric surplus. So, really the only thing that I can think of is ice cream. And I know this is completely against keto, and I don't know how long this is going to last. It is a simple experiment. I'm going to start after my meals just eating a bunch of ice cream and seeing how that goes. That's just what I'm going to start doing. Ice cream, I do like ice cream. It's easily my favorite dessert thing to indulge in. And I don't think it's particularly close. So if I'm trying to achieve a caloric surplus, then I think it's really the only carb or the only thing that I could really get addicted to eat more of. And since I'm skinny, I just want to try it. So I want to just see what kind of ice cream's available. Try to do it a little more economical, maybe with a bigger tub or something like that. And then just try to add it as a way to bulk more. Because like I said, I'm kind of at my limit for fat and protein. It's difficult to eat much more of that stuff. I'm already very, filled up to the brim with that. So I think adding some ice cream, see how I feel. If it makes me more tired, we will stop. If it helps with my mood or energy, we will keep it and just go from there. I don't know. Not really a recommended thing, but I figure what can a little experimentation can... I figure what's the worst that could happen with a little experimentation? I mean, I'm young, I'm chill, things are chill. There's no reason to fret at this point. So that's where I'm at, and we're going to end up just seeing how things go. Could be good, could be bad. And it all remains to be seen, So that's the plan for the week. That's the thing I wanted to vent about. I think the other thing is the wool clothing I wanted to get. I can't really say for certain, but it really seems like they jacked up their prices a ton. I don't know if that's due to the tariffs or if they just have to raise their prices just due to general issues with the economy, because I can imagine, this stuff that's made ethically, and they, have to pay the people who make it. A lot more of it's made in Europe. And yeah, I'm honestly, it's surprising I even got it for what I got it for, if you really think about it. Considering how high-end the fabric is, as well as the, again, made in Europe. It's not made in China. So I think they jacked up their prices a lot. But either way, to get the rest of the clothes I wanted, it's $1,150 or something, which just seems crazy to me. And so it's kind of making me not even necessarily feel like getting it anymore. Kind of sad. I'm having a lot of second thoughts and reservations about it now, which is sad. But it's just, that's a lot of money, and that's not even including if I wanted to get a merino wool fleece like jacket, which I really wanted. That would add another $250. So then the total would actually end up being $1,400, which is severe. I mean, it's very severe. And I already spent $500 something on just my t-shirts, underwear, and socks that I got from there. So that would bring my total to $2,000 spent on merino wool. And it just has me a little bit, It really has me a little bit. Just not sure how I feel about it. And it's a tough pill for me to swallow, especially because of the frugal phase I'm in right now. It's a shock to me. It's a lot. And I don't know. I'm just not feeling it. I mean, it's just excessive, It's a lot of money for clothing, and already it was a huge step for me to get this clothing, because I typically don't do that kind of thing. I've actually never spent any money on clothes before, so it was already difficult to do, and I still did it, and I don't know. So I'm not sure. I'm really not sure how I am going to figure this out. It's just one of those things, I guess. I don't know. It's one of those things. Just trying to get through and figure it out. Wow, I just really lost my train of thought. That's crazy. What on earth was I talking about? How did that happen? I mean, the only thing that happened, I saw a BMW with the 3 colored stripes on one side of the grill, and I've seen that before, but this was a newer one, and it was a lot more prominent. So I guess I thought that was interesting, and then I don't know, I switched over to monitoring the cylinder-deactivation status on my car, and yeah, I guess I just did too many things and was talking and just kind of trailed off. So I completely lost track. Oh, we were talking about the merino wool. So the merino wool, and you know what? Apologies if I'm bored. I feel like I'm more mellow or boring than before, but I don't know. I'm just trying to keep this thing going. It's what I'm doing, but I'm doing it how I like it. I'm not having even an ounce of pressure to make this. Like I said, this is basically my diary. That's kind of how I see it. And yeah, it's just I don't know. I'm hoping at some point, and I'm sure it is, cultivating improved skill when it comes to socializing and Well, socializing. No, probably not socializing. Improved skill with recording and that sort of stuff. So should be better at some point. I mean, it's got to be doing something, because if you compare, I mean, I know I'm not really pushing it, I know I'm not really trying hard, but if you compare this to me doing nothing, I think there's a difference. I do think there's a difference, and I guess that will remain to be seen, but is what it is, right? It is what it is. But yeah, it's a difficult pill to swallow, to blow 1,500 on clothes. It will be nice. I mean, it's good stuff. It's amazing stuff, but I just don't know that it's worth it or necessary. It's just like, it's a little bit crazy. It's a little bit kooky of me to do. But I don't know. And none of y'all know about Merino for sure. This is like my own thing. I'm in my own lane, but it's a shame. It's just a shame how expensive it is to get all that stuff. But yeah, I'm upset about that potassium thing. I don't know. It could end up being useful though. It's possible. But if I get the milk, it's going to be less critical, and I really wish I just got some salt. Really, because salt is super important. I want to get a special salt container. That's something I'm pretty interested in obtaining. Something small, something nice, like some kind of metal. Yeah, something good quality, fairly compact salt shaker for personal use with a lid, or ideally one of those twist cap thingies. I'm sure it exists. Be very interested in it, honestly. Super cool idea, super duper cool idea. So, just random thoughts I'm having. There was definitely other things I wanted to talk about that are totally lost and forgotten at this rate. Totally, completely lost. Because again, I just had all that stuff with the potassium and the salt. And it should be a pretty fun weekend, and maybe a fun week with this ice cream experiment. Because again, I don't really know what else. I think I could actually push calories more if I just bought more beef and relied less on eggs. I mean, that might cause me to eat more. It's interesting. It's possible, but I have it slanted more towards eggs for cost purposes, because eggs are such a cheap and efficient food, and yeah, I don't know. But I probably would enjoy more beef as opposed to eggs, and I don't know. I might be a little healthier too. So we'll have to see about that, I guess. But I do want to experiment with cutting out cheese and just trying to salt a bunch extra. And we'll see. It'll be a fun time at the grocery store tomorrow. And the ice cream too. But again, the ice cream, that's a little bit of a goofier idea. It's just... The other thing I heard that's interesting is, again, some people, if they're at a caloric surplus, the body burns it off naturally, so they get a little more fidgety. And so, Yeah, that's kind of another reason. I kind of would want that. I kind of like the sound of that because I'm really someone where I'm pretty depressed. And so, in general, and I think that could have to do with the sodium as well as the caloric intake because obviously my metabolism is very high and I exercise a lot. As in walking, I mean, nothing super strenuous, but still. And I just shifted for no reason. I don't know why I did that. Like, totally did not need. I just like instinctively. I don't know what that was about. I feel like my energy. I'm just. I want more amp, and I think carbs could do that. I think the ice cream could help with that potentially. But I think most importantly, this salt could be the missing key this entire time. That could really be the kicker that I had just not known. You know what I mean? So I'm excited. I mean, this could really help me and help me to be a little more, just feel better, and not have to drink as much water and things like that. I mean, it could really help me. So I'm hopeful. Very hopeful. And it could be a tasty proposition to boot. In addition, it could be a tasty proposition. That's better. In addition, a tasty proposition. Because, so it all helps. It all helps. But I'm interested in experimenting because, who doesn't like experimenting? But yeah, I think ice cream's really the only thing that I would really want. And it kind of makes sense to cut out cheese, especially if I am going to add in ice cream because that's dairy. And, so if I'm going to have ice cream, then it's like I obviously should. If I'm going to have ice cream, it makes sense to cut out dairy in other areas, That just makes a lot of sense. Well, at least it is the weekend. This week has been better than last week, but I am still recovering a little bit from the downswing. And I hope to work on these episodes to make them a little better. I don't think this week, and especially last week, was my best performances at all. But it is what it is, It is what it is. And like I said, I'm not really trying to stress about it. It's really just a thing. It's just a thing I do. There's not stress or pressure. And that's just the whole intention with it and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I was putting a little bit of effort into at least thinking about what a second job could look like. I have a feeling some place like a restaurant could have a weekend only shift, because places like that, that's kind of what they're looking for, So I think that's a possibility. That makes a lot of sense. Because again, I mean, it doesn't really make sense to have people full time for a restaurant, there's obviously peak hours, and I assume weekends do better than during the week typically. Although, I mean, how true even is that? You know? I don't even know how true that is. Because I guess some people, they do just go like after work. I guess that's just hard for me to comprehend, because I can't really imagine wanting to do that. But yeah, I'd assume weekends are a little more in demand for those kind of places, so I could possibly get some kind of like weekend only shift. It doesn't seem that crazy to me, because yeah, I don't know, it doesn't seem that crazy to me, because places should want people to be part-time. It's just what they want is someone who's part-time but not limited. So that's obviously the problem, is the fact that it just makes it very difficult. Like, they want to pay people part-time, but they just want to keep people in the 30s, and they want people where that's their only job and they have full availability, you know what I mean? But I'm just trying to think about what would at least make the most sense. And to me, that makes sense. Like, to me, it's like, yeah, there should be a place, a restaurant that would want some kind of weekend only shift or something like that. That completely makes sense to me. That should exist. It shouldn't be like a problem to find that. I mean, even an evening shift at a restaurant, that even kind of makes sense. If I wanted to do the crazy like 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. thing, that's like also totally because again, most people go out to eat at night. Am I right? I think I'm right, you know? So I will look into it, I guess, eventually. It's obviously, and I think I've explained this before, it's a shame, because I would do a second job right now if I was given the opportunity to. But I really struggle with the whole application process, and like, again, trying to find something that would work. It's tricky, you know? I really just liked working when I had my extra hours at my current job. That was like perfect. If I could have that back and then have a weekend job. Right now, the idea would be to have 3 jobs. It would be this thing, try to get out early, and then go to the night shift weekday job, and on the weekends have the weekend job. And then I'd probably want to do that for a year or 2 or 3, and then probably shift to, maybe I would drop the weekend job and just have the weekday, or drop the night shift weekday and go just to the weekend, something like that. And then eventually I'd probably be able to just work the one job after, I mean, not that long. It's just, again, about getting a foundation, just wanting foundational savings. It's so important to get it. Once you have it, your income doesn't really need to be as high. It's just how money works. So that's the plan, and I would do it right now if I had the opportunity to. But again, it's actually kind of tricky to figure all this stuff out, and society is not designed for it at this point. So it's just a shame that my company did what they did, and I can't. I said it so many times, I was really going to put my foot down, but I just didn't. You know, I just didn't speak up. But like I said, I mean, it's not like I don't have any valid reasoning for that. It's not like my boss even is the one that has a problem with it. It's the higher ups, and I can't even directly speak to them. So it's just, you know, you can't. What can you do? I don't know. I mean, I could have mouthed off to him, but maybe it's possible. I mean, maybe I sabotaged myself. Maybe I could have talked to him, could have negotiated with the higher ups and gotten something, but I guess I just doubt it. And I like my boss, so I don't really want to make a stink. And yeah, like, my job's chill, but it's just, I really wish I was getting the same hours that I got before. It was good. It was really good times living like that, making a living wage, just being able to have a normal life. It was very good times indeed. Because it competed with this, again, like, that's what you have to do in this economy. That's just what you have to do. Now, it's a shame I can't void my overtime, because that easily should be an option. I don't, again, like I said, I don't, well, yeah, I mean, that's a whole other discussion for another time. It's a shame I forgot about the other things I wanted to talk about, but anyways, it has been Schla, and now it's time to buy Schla. So, see ya, Schla.